Hello, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to this session titled Cause Prioritization in the Face of Short Timelines. Our speaker is Hayley Clatterbuck, who's a senior researcher at the Worldview investigations team at Rethink Priorities, and a visiting associate professor of philosophy at UCLA. As a reminder, if you have questions for the speaker, please submit them on SwapCard during the session, and afterwards there will be a follow-up Q&A session in Empire Ballroom West. And without further ado, please welcome our speaker, Hayley.
Welcome, and thank you for being here. So today my topic is going to be something that I think is at the top of a lot of our minds, which is how should our cause prioritization decisions change in the face of increasingly short timelines? So despite the fact that there's very significant uncertainty about the feasibility of superhuman AI and the timeline on which it might arrive, and also significant uncertainty about whether transformative AI would be a net good or bad thing, I think there's increasing coalescence and a lot of people in our community in the world around the following proposition. A lot of people seem to increasingly agree that transformative AI is coming soon. It's going to change a lot of things. And the fate of the future, to some extent, depends on whether we get it right. My goal in this talk is not to question this claim, although I'll flag that if you're uncertain about this claim, to the extent that you're uncertain, it will sort of help the arguments I'm about to make. My question is, what follows if we accept this claim about how we ought to distribute resources and which projects we ought to prioritize in EA and in the world more broadly? And the reason I bring this up is that over the last couple years, we have heard, at least anecdotally, a lot of people expressing uncertainty about what they've been doing given short AI timelines. We've heard from a lot of, say, animal welfare researchers saying, well, I was going to do this, but if AI is coming soon, maybe it doesn't make any sense for me to do this. Or hearing from funders to say, you need to tell me how this will pay off in the next 2 years, or I don't really want to fund it because I'm worried that AI is going to change everything. Okay? And I think we've seen a lot of changes in resource allocation as a result. So my question is, given this uncertainty and a lot of people wanting to navigate it, what would follow from accepting this proposition? Here are two things that I think people commonly think may follow from this, both of which I'm going to call into question. The first is going to be the main subject of the talk, which is the claim that if this proposition is true, then projects in other cause areas are undermined, and working on them right now is useless. So we're focusing on arguments that say, if transformative AI is coming soon, this undermines the value of other kinds of projects, and therefore there's no value in working on them right now. A distinct but related claim is the second, which is that if this proposition is true, then the AI safety cause area should vastly outweigh all other cause areas in prioritization decisions. So even if the value of other projects isn't undercut by AI, still AI is overwhelmingly important. And so nevertheless, we ought to prioritize it highly. What I'm going to say is, again, primarily addressed at this first claim, but a few things I'll say will also, I think, cast doubt on the second. Here's what I'm not arguing here. I'm not arguing that short timelines are false. As I said, though, to the extent that you're uncertain about short timelines, you might find that some of the things I'll argue will be even more plausible. Secondly, I'm not arguing that we shouldn't prioritize at least some AI safety work even very highly. And I'll admit that even in my own cause prioritization, like what I spend my time on and what my team spends their time on, we have shifted a lot towards AI safety from where we were even a couple years ago. So I do think that AI safety is very important. I'm also not arguing that if you work on something else, you should ignore the possibility of AI and it should be business as usual. I'll argue that AI should affect how you do cause prioritization within other cause areas, although it shouldn't necessarily keep you from working in those cause areas completely. But what I am arguing is that short AI timelines do not necessarily undermine or outweigh the value of projects in other cause areas. Things like farmed animal welfare, global health, other sort of global catastrophic risk mitigation, stuff like that. I'll also argue that diversified action is a hedge against our uncertainty, both about timelines and the nature of AI and whether it's going to be a good or bad thing. And in fact, this diversity of people working in different cause areas may promote safe AI transitions themselves. And lastly, I think we need to do more careful cross-cause prioritization that evaluates projects on their own merits, not on the basis of just the bucket they fall into. So there's a simple heuristic you could be using, which is just AI safety good, everything else bad. I'm not saying anyone really has that simple heuristic, but I think it would be a mistaken one to fall back on. Okay, so in this talk, I'm going to consider sort of three versions of the argument for why short AI timelines might undermine the value of projects in other cause areas. I think I've heard all three of these, and they can't all be true, but you might think that even if you're uncertain about AI, one of these will be true. So the first one is the optimistic view, and that says, whatever you're working on right now, AI is going to solve it, right? So if you're working on, say, factory farming, we've often heard AI will solve factory farming. So don't waste your time working on this right now. If you wait a few years, the problem will go away. Or, slightly weaker claim, whatever it is you're doing, there's a good chance that super intelligent AI will do it better, faster, and cheaper than you can right now. So why don't you just stop doing it and wait, and in a couple of years, super intelligent AI will do everything you're doing, but better. The second view is the pessimistic view that says there's a very large chance that AI is going to kill us all. And if AI kills us all in the next few years, then curing malaria wasn't ever going to matter. And so therefore, you should sort of discount the value of your projects in accordance to how likely you think the probability of AI doom is. And if you think this probability is high enough, you might think the value is really, really, really mitigated to the point that it's not worth doing compared to other things. So what you should be doing is instead working to reduce AI risk, or you should just do something more fun than the research that you were going to do. Lastly, and as I'll point out, I think the most plausible view is the uncertainty view. And it says this. AI is going to disrupt everything. It's going to disrupt economic systems and political systems and technological systems and everything else that forms the background of our theories of change that we're working with today. Given that we believe it's going to disrupt everything in a way that we can't anticipate, you have no idea whether your current theory of change is going to apply or make any sense in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. So the best thing to do is just sit and wait for the dust to settle. Figure out what the landscape is going to look like after transformative AI, save your money, and then you can be more effective then. Okay? So we should sit and wait until later. Okay. I'm going to give you some sort of quick reasons to doubt each of these. And I admit they're a little quick, but we can talk about them more in Q&A or in office hours. So why do I doubt the optimistic view? So when we're projecting forward and saying AI will solve some problem, I think to be confident in that, we need to postulate some mechanism by which AI will solve the problem. And we're not exactly sure what superintelligent AI is going to look like, but I'm more confident that superintelligent AI is going to be really good at tackling intelligence-based problems than social problems or political problems or things like that, right? It's already won a Nobel Prize in chemistry. I'm a lot more doubtful it's going to win a Nobel Peace Prize soon. So given that AI has shown the most promise in solving problems in intelligence and innovation, we should sort of, when we look forward, think that's the dimension on which AI is going to solve the most things. And we should ask ourselves, which are the problems that we're working on where throwing more intelligence is likely to solve those problems? And what are the problems where throwing more intelligence at it is not likely to actually solve these? So when intelligence and innovation are not enough to solve a problem, it's increasingly likely that human work will still be necessary. And I'm going to argue that intelligence and innovation are often not sufficient to solve our biggest problems, and we can see that today. So let's take as an example this claim that we've heard, which is that AI will solve factory farming. how should we evaluate this? So let's think about all the different dimensions of work that need to go right for factory farming to be quote unquote solved. So here are just 4 of them. First, we can think what kinds of innovations, technological innovations, could help solve factory farming. The one that gets mentioned most often is that AI might deliver us innovations in cheap cultured meat or other types of meat alternatives that could compete economically and taste-wise with animal-based products. Okay? That is something that we're definitely looking forward to and would be great. On the other hand, is that alone going to solve factory farming? Here are some doubts. There are social and cultural dimensions on which we need to succeed first before that's going to solve things. People have been highly hesitant to switch to meat alternatives and to cultured meat. And you can see this being sort of an entrenched area in which society polarizes even more than it is. Secondly, bans on cultured meat are already in place in states like Florida and Alabama, and definitely considered in other places. And if you think that an aligned superintelligence will obey human laws, then an aligned superintelligence that obeys human laws is not going to solve factory farming. Okay? So we'd have to figure out what would alignment be for an AI when our laws keep it from doing the things we want it to do. And lastly, even though we focus on the way that AI could make cultured meat cheap and compete with traditional meat, keep in mind that AI is also being used by the opponents of people trying to end factory farming. AI is already being used in precision farming to make farming much more efficient and therefore meat cheaper. So AI cuts both ways on a lot of issues. It will both solve some problems and exacerbate others. And I want to bring up a distressing example of how much intelligence and innovation don't solve all of our biggest problems. So intelligence and innovation have given us amazing treatments for HIV/AIDS, including PrEP and other things that prevent people from even contracting it. You might think that that was all there was to solve the problem of global HIV. But we've seen in the last year, distressingly, it's not. Despite the fact that we have all the technology to solve this problem available to us, political, social, legal constraints have made us move backwards on this issue, such that cuts to US aid, the Lancet predicts will result in 14 million preventable deaths that wouldn't have otherwise occurred in the next 5 years. Okay? So AI can give us all the cures for malaria we want. Without political will, nothing good's going to come of it. So here's where I think more research should be done to help cause prioritization. To try to map out what dimensions do we think that near future and far future AIs are going to be good at? Are they going to be good at social persuasion? Are they going to be good at yielding certain economic changes? And then map out which dimensions we need to succeed on in order to solve our problems. And that way we can sort of keep track of like, what parts of our other cause areas is AI gonna solve, and which ones are left over for a lot of human work to take place in. Okay, so what are the upshots thinking about the optimistic view? Many innovations can be beneficial in some contexts and harmful in others. So certain things, when harnessed to a democracy, might be incredibly good for humanity, but harnessed to an entrenched dictatorship could be very, very bad. Given that AI could go either way, work to make it go one way or the other is extremely important, and even more important if transformative AI is coming soon. And I just suspect that a lot of that work is not going to be work that AI can do. It's going to be work that advocates do for social and legal change, moral change, things like that. I think what we should be doing is, Lizka and Ben West put this really nicely, is looking for projects in other cause areas that build levers that reach across the paradigm shift, right? So things that don't just have an impact in the next 3 years, but things that will make the next 50 years go well because they steer AI in good directions. And I think there's a lot of that work to be done that's not squarely in AI safety. Okay. How about the pessimistic view? One could argue against this by arguing for a particular probability of doom being suitable. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to note that while a probability of doom should discount the potential value that you project forward of having a certain project having, unless your probability of doom is 100%, you still think there are worlds in which it doesn't occur and other things that we have done mattered, okay? Furthermore, there are non-extinction related AI doom scenarios, like S-risk scenarios, in which we have entrenched dictatorships or we have massively increased factory farming, something like that. We should also take those into account. And if you think that my arguments against the optimistic view that work in other cause areas help prevent these kinds of futures are good arguments, then you would think that work in other cause areas matters right now. So trying to prevent the entrenchment of factory farming now can also stave off S-risks. Furthermore, I think depending on how you carve disciplinary boundaries into AI safety and non-AI safety, it's worth noting that there are some other projects we could be doing that would also have the sort of beneficial side effect of reducing the chance of AI doom itself. So for example, if you're working on democracy promotion right now, that has really good effects in worlds where AI doom doesn't happen, and it also reduces the chance of authoritarian capture leading to certain doom or S-risk scenarios. Biosecurity infrastructure might also give us systems for early warning that are really good for novel pathogens, and also good if AI starts breaking containment and we need to alert everyone about that. International threat cooperation, the same. Lastly, and much more speculatively, but I'm a philosopher, so I gotta say it, doing work on philosophy right now to develop better moral frameworks that could guide AI in better directions might also be beneficial. Okay. So I'll leave the pessimistic view there. This is the argument that I think should concern us the most. The uncertainty view, which just says, save your money, you should wait for the dust to settle, see what the world looks like after transformative AI, then spend your money, spend your labor, whatever, doing the things that make sense relative to that new world. Okay. First, I'll note that there are benefits to saving money and waiting, but there are also costs to waiting and withdrawing from certain cause areas for a few years. One is that if you think that AI is going to sort of result in radical economic changes, for example, your money that you are saving might be worth much less if AI causes like a rampant increase in the supply of resources. It might be the case that you could actually do more with your money now. That's very speculative, but I think it's worth considering things like the value of patient philosophy or philanthropy, depending on economic changes that we foresee. Less speculatively, it's definitely true that pausing work in other areas now can cause them to leach talent, expertise, and other resources. And if you think that we are going to need to pick up the global health cause or the farm animal welfare cause or nuclear safety cause in 5 years after transformative AI, and it's going to be a harder, weirder problem then, you want to maintain that expertise so that we can pick up where we left off. If you let a field die, and don't get new talent in and don't sort of cultivate new resources, it's going to be hard to have the experts we need to pick up where we left off in 5 years. So investing in these right now might be a good way to build capacity. Lastly, this is uncertainty about our uncertainty. You might think that there are some things that even in short AI timelines will not change or will change less rapidly than others. For example, if I was doing a public health project in the United States, I would be more uncertain about what that would look like in 10 years than if I was doing it in a lower middle income country whose economy I expect to change more slowly, right? To be transformed later than other economies. So if you think that you are working on something where your theory of change persists across an AI transition, go forth. Okay. So what should we conclude from what I've said? I haven't given you knockdown arguments against any of these different scenarios in which AI undermines everything else. But I hope I've given enough reason to doubt them that if you're sufficiently uncertain about what's going to happen, you might think that diversification is a good response to that kind of uncertainty. Okay? So I think what we need is more, again, careful cross-cause prioritization that looks at projects individually and says, how much do these make sense now and how much do they make sense given our uncertainty about the future, as opposed to just elevating certain cause areas and denigrating others. I do think that if you work in cause areas other than AI safety or including AI safety, you should be asking yourself, is what I'm doing now something that AI could do better in the near future? And if so, maybe I should devote my resources elsewhere. I've emphasized that advocacy work is something that might be particularly compelling as opposed to research work, which, as a researcher, I shouldn't have said. You should also be asking yourself, does my project's path to impact only make sense in a non-AI world? If that's the case, you need to start rethinking what you're doing and asking if certain AI scenarios pan out, how could my work be beneficial in those scenarios as well? I think a diversified cause portfolio, including diversifying beyond the causes that we typically fund or think of, is a hedge against the uncertainty you have, and it preserves the capacities crucial for navigating a post-AI world. So I'm going to conclude with something just to consider, and it's a bit of a call for humility in this moment. I myself sometimes am like extremely uncertain about AI, and sort of my pendulum swings wildly between different sort of believing different sort of scenarios that could result. And I just want to bring up a moment from the past, an interview that Bertrand Russell gave in 1951 after the advent of nuclear weapons. And he was saying, nothing that we have done so far is going to make sense in the future given that we have nuclear weapons. Nuclear weapons is going to change everything in the entire structure of the world, and we need to rip up all of our playbooks and prepare for this new world. So he says, before the end of the present century, unless something quite unforeseeable occurs, one of three possibilities will have been realized. Either the end of all human life, a reversion to barbarism when nuclear war reduces us to rubble, or the unification of the world under a single government possessing a monopoly on all the major weapons of war. Clearly, these were not the only three possibilities. And in fact, people kept working on traditional weapons and traditional statecraft and a lot of other kinds of things that ended up really, really mattering. And I'm really glad that they did that. I mean, not the traditional weapons thing, but you know what I mean. That had we taken seriously these three possibilities, right, we would have stopped doing a whole lot of work that ended up shaping our world today, for better or worse. So Bertrand Russell is a smarter person than most of us in this room, and so I think it's like a humbling note to say to stay humble, that none of us know how the future is going to go, and that we should be making decisions in light of that uncertainty. Thank you for coming. I think we have a few minutes for questions, and we'll end there.
Thank you, everyone, for submitting questions on SwapCard. The first one we have is that how would you kind of think about if AI systems dramatically accelerate research? We should think about kind of work we're doing now as seeding the sorts of futures that will be available to the AI and the paths it goes down.
Yeah, this is an interesting kind of uncertainty for me. So one thing I note is that we have the most evidence that AI is going to solve innovation problems. But it's worth noting that sort of the major scientific breakthroughs that AI systems have made so far were very highly scaffolded by human knowledge. So if you look at AlphaFold, which won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry and basically solved the protein folding problem, that wasn't an AI that just from scratch read the internet. This was not a large language model, right? This was something where human beings had designed the structure of the space, and centuries of human work went into building the scaffolds for this AI to then go forward and make incredible innovations. So I do take it that I don't just want to say, well, we make super intelligent AI, and without any scaffolding or any background knowledge that we can shape now, it will solve all the problems. That might not be how it works. It might be that only highly scaffolded AI systems do the things that are so remarkable. And so you're right that I think you might think if you're doing research right now in the scientific field, as well as moral fields or whatever, is to say like, hey, what are the key problems that AI might be able to solve, and how do I structure those problems now to set it up for the future?
Yeah, kind of a follow-up question from the audience as well. So you kind of, many of the arguments you make are about the idea that AI might be particularly good at like a specific type of research right now, but perhaps this is like extrapolating what the current trend is rather than like what we should actually expect AI to look like when it happens.
Great. So I think this is a response that I am aware of, and I think here would be a bad thing if someone said like, well, look, by superhuman AI, we mean genuinely a guru that's perfect at everything and is going to solve all these things. And I like admit that's maybe a possibility, right? That like maybe superhuman AI is going to be very good at persuading us to only move in the right moral directions, or it's going to solve every scientific problem or something. And if that's your view, fine. It seems like almost all research or all work we could be doing right now would be undermined. I'm just uncertain enough about that I don't want to bank on it. And in particular, I just want to fall back on the claim that giving us a whole bunch of knowledge can be enlisted to serve both good and bad aims. And so the sort of moral alignment that once we have super intelligent AI, it's going to do all the right things, I'm even more suspicious of that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we're out of time. I'm sure we all have many great follow-up questions, so I would recommend going to Empire Ballroom West for our Q&A with the speaker. And thank you for your talk.
Thank you.